Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55. Presented by Slapsticks Comedy Club. For ticket information, go to slapstickscomedy.com.
I'll be at Slapsticks on Saturday, the 9:15 show. So come see me. Throw some jokes. All right, top 5 takeaways from the NCAA ruling today. And I want to repeat some of this stuff, and it may seem like a rehash, but I thought this might be an opportunity to maybe simplify and be straightforward very quickly because of the things we've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and also close the book.
Yeah, close the book on it. All right, number 5. Baylor's problem was much larger than the athletic department. Much, much larger. So when you think about this case and you wonder why it was ruled the way it was, and if you want to read the findings, it's on ncaa.org, and you can read the whole thing, that this was much larger than the athletic department.
Yep, and that was my opinion from day one, 6 years ago when this all started, was that this wasn't just a football thing, and to no avail tried to say that. Probably should have been smarter than to think that people were actually, during the heat of all this, really going to want to listen to anything other than the worst possible scenario, but that's what it was from the beginning, and that's what it still is now, and the NCAA just showed that, yeah.
Number 4, there was no lack of institutional control, and that's kind of hard, like, to wrap your head around. It's
puzzling to me.
Yeah,
that was not mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, like, they mentioned it in the brief release about it. It was like there was no lack of institutional control from the coach or the AD or the president, especially given that, I mean, basically they're admitting that the entire institution was a mess when it came to this issue.
Right.
But there was not. And so that was not part of this ruling, in that at every turn where they thought they might have had a lack of institutional control, they did not find cause to say there was a lack of institutional control. That is something to maybe
redefine as you reconstitute, because, I mean, dude, to me, it's the definition of a lack of institutional control. I mean, just on the surface, it's absolutely that. It'd be one thing if it was just the football team, and then, yeah, there would be no lack of institutional control because it would have been more of a program issue. But as we've repeated now, this was absolutely the institution. So how they had a handle on the control in the eyes of the NCAA, I have no idea. Like, that one is a bit of a stunner to me. I thought that was going to come in some form or fashion, but, yeah, it was not the case.
All right, number 3, there was only one impermissible benefit. So of all this and impermissible benefits, there was one. A student athlete, a football player, cheated on a quiz.
Which is the first time that has ever happened in the history of college football, for sure.
Apparently, allegedly, a person on the football staff who is right now Odell James did not report that properly. And that was the impermissible benefit. That was it. That's what they found.
Not cash.
And look, man.
And this is 10 years ago.
And I remember when this first all happened too, like, all the, freezing cold takes could do an entire account on the freezing cold takes from over the last 6 years. But, yeah, I was, the one thing that I think was of most concern probably to a lot of Baylor fans was, okay, you're riding high, you're playing a big brand of football, you're upsetting the blue bloods and things like that, and, you're kind of the outsider. And I just really thought that the scariest part probably for a lot of Baylor fans was obviously the main subject matter is awful enough on its own, but then the realization of, like, now they're really going to dive in, and they're really going to, like, some people on the outside are really going to look into this, and you start to wonder, like, okay, what does that uncover? Does that uncover a car payment? Does that uncover impermissible whatever else? And the fact that it didn't, I mean, I think that's probably something that a lot of those former coaches are celebrating, that was all they came out with was one impermissible benefit. I mean, it's kind of shocking, honestly.
All right.
I mean, just college football in general, you'd think they would have found something, like anywhere they looked, like at any program.
Yeah, so, there was one impermissible benefit.
That was kind of shocking, yeah.
One. Number 2, our Browse didn't handle things the right way. That's in the report. That's based on the testimony from Browse himself. And look, I know that he believes that this exonerates him, and I think it does to a little bit of a degree in that, but I do think it's clear that the leadership at Baylor was not handling things the right way, and he's part of that leadership. Whether he's the number one, he's not the number one culprit in this. This was much larger than Art Briles. Like I said, number 5, this is much larger than the athletic department. This is much larger than football, but Art Briles was the leader of the football program and did not have answers for why this was going on or how to deal with it. That's why he's gone.
I mean, based on what we know, when he went in there to talk to the investigators, when they were looking into all this, and you guys can confirm this or not, but the big knock on Art and the thing that probably cost him his job was the fact that when he went into those closed-door meetings to discuss what was going on, he had no answers. He had no, right? He had no, here's how we're going to get out of this. Not get out of it, but here's how we're going to work our way through this. Here's how we're going to do that. Here's what happened here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was as much the lack of forward thinking or forward planning or forward reacting that
there was that reported. Yeah, that was reported that they had one more let's try to see if we could make this happen. I don't know whether or not that's the truth. I've seen it written. I've seen it reported. I've even been told that. They had a meeting, and he struck out.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have the answers that they were looking for. I mean, bottom line is that doesn't really matter now. But yeah, today I think somewhat clears him partially, and then again it doesn't. So I think you're kind of still where you were, except for now there is this big allegation that's been hanging around you that you can point to and say, no, it's not exactly the way it's been portrayed. But I still think there's plenty of bad blood and plenty of negativity towards him that he's never going to be able to shake entirely.
No, and look, if there were 30 people who deserve to be fired from this, I think Art Briles is probably 28th on that list, and they all did a bit. But he still was the leader of the football program, and
he was the one that ESPN put out as and I'm not saying again he had no blame in all this. Clearly he does. But yeah, he was the one that they kind of put out front as the mastermind of this whole thing. I never thought that was fair. I always thought that was so dirty, and I think this kind of proves that to some extent.
Yeah. And number 1, the NCAA cannot prosecute criminal cases.
Yeah.
That's look, when you're mad about this and wonder why this didn't go the way that you thought it would, the NCAA cannot prosecute criminal cases. They don't have subpoena power. They don't have, they can't, they don't have forensic, experts that break down scenes of crimes. It's not CSI Indianapolis. That's not what they do. They cannot prosecute criminal cases. And that's ultimately what this was. And that's why we're here.
From Sam Kim to wrap it up, Baylor should be glad the dark clouds have been lifted. New challenges are formidable. Best wishes to Baylor and their fans. And this is not even from a Baylor fan. We appreciate that. Another one that ended. Hope Coach Briles does get a chance to coach again in Division I from Todd Lee. 5-year dark cloud gone. Thanks, Sam.
I mean, I am interested to see if this does change things in the minds of those hiring coaches and who, will potentially go out and say, hey, now that this is out in the open, maybe we try to look at him. I don't know how that's going to go, and it's not really a concern at all of mine. But, I think for the people over that we're venture over to campus in just a moment, as a matter of fact, to talk to Dave Aranda, I'm sure there will be a huge feeling of relief. At the same time, you have to keep in mind where this all stemmed from and realize it's not a day to throw a party, but it is a day where you can kind of take a deep breath if you're a Baylor fan. And now this question that's lingered is finally, put to bed, and everybody involved can move on as best as they